Welcome everyone to podcast number 4. Today I am introducing you to Andrew. Well, a lot of you don't need an introduction really because you already know him. But I'm chatting to Andrew, the runner stitcher. Andrew, thank you very much for being here. It's absolutely lovely to see you in person. We've had quite a lot of email contact to
Yes,
get here, but here we are.
yes, we
And
finally made it, and thank you so
yeah,
much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I was very excited to join when I finally could.
well, I love it, and I look forward to getting to know you a little bit better and to hear about some of your stitches that you do.
Yeah,
Um, so tell us a little bit about yourself and about your stitching journey.
sure. Yeah. So I am 38 years old. I'll be 39 in August, and I live in New York City with my boyfriend, who is also named Andrew. So
Oh,
a lot of our friends just call us the Andrews. But yeah, we live here in New York City. I've lived here for about, I think it'll be 15 years in June that I've been in the city, so it's been a while. Feels like my home now.
yeah.
Um, I have been stitching since I was younger, but I took a very long hiatus. So I learned to stitch when I was probably in middle school, from my mom and my aunt. They used to cross stitch all the time when I was growing up,
Okay.
and I was always fascinated by it. They
Mhm.
mostly did cross stitch on sweatshirts. My aunt especially would do a lot of them, and she would sell them at our local school fair each year. So we would have a fair. I think it was right around Christmas time, like maybe the beginning of December, and she would stitch these sweatshirts with different patterns on them and sell them at the fair. And they always sold really well, and she always did them, and I remember just being fascinated by it. So they bought me a kit that I think it was for kids. I have a picture of it somewhere where I opened it at Christmas time. It was my first cross stitch kit, but I think it was like a bear holding a crayon and something else. But it was like very large. I'm probably like 11 count canvas maybe. And that's what my mom taught me how to stitch on. And then from there, I sort of got even more into it and started stitching a few more patterns that they had. A lot of ones that they used to stitch on those towels.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? There'd be
Yeah.
towels, like a small section on the towel that they would stitch, like a dish towel or a hand towel. So I did a couple of those, and yeah, just really enjoyed it. And then, as I got older and school got busier, I just kind of fell out of love with it. And so I didn't stitch for years and years. It's only been the past like 3.5 years that I got back into stitching. And it kind of was a fluke. I was looking for different crafts to do, and I kind of got into diamond painting. And so I've done one of those. And when I started getting more into crafts, Instagram would give me like suggestions of other crafts that I would like. And at some point, a cross stitch pattern came up, and it just triggered something in my brain. I was like, oh yeah, I really used to enjoy that. Like,
Mhm.
I remember doing this. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy one. So I bought a couple of different kits and just started stitching again, and then I fell in love with it. And when I kind of got back into it, just like everybody else, I started looking for tutorials online or just seeing what was out there. And Teresa Little Stitcher was one of the first people that I watched on Flosstube, and she had a lot of tutorials just explaining different things, like the loop start and things that I we never learned when I when I was first cross stitching. And so that sort of opened up, the world of Flosstube. And then I found all these stitchers and all these amazing patterns and all these amazing designers. And then the floodgates were just open.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back since.
Yeah. And then you started your own floss tube.
Yeah.
And what sort of drew you in to actually do that?
I think it was honestly like watching a lot of different floss tubers and feeling like, oh, maybe I could do this too. And sort of join into the community because it always felt fun to me. The floss tubers would mention other people that they watch or other channels, and it all felt like everybody was sort of connected in a way, and I really liked that. So that was part of the reason. The other part was I always just thought it was so cool to have like a video diary of your progress. I always enjoyed watching the same person from week to week or month to month and seeing here's where they started and here's where they got to, and like having this sort of diary in a way of your stitching. And so when I put out my first video, I thought, maybe like 50 or 100 people will see it and that would be awesome, but like at least it'll be a video diary for me. And then it
Mm.
just sort of took off from there and I was kind of blown away by the reception and felt like, well, I don't know why everybody's watching me because I'm such a new Stitcher again. I just started back up. But it's been great and I have no regrets about starting it. I'm so glad that I did and yeah, it's just been a wonderful experience. But it wasn't kind of planned to kind of take over my life in the way that it has in a good
But it
way.
does take over a little bit, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, because it
Yeah.
is time consuming, right? I mean, you're doing the stitching anyway, which is fun and your
Yeah.
hobby and everything, but it is time consuming to sort of record the videos and then edit the
Yeah.
videos and upload the videos and kind of get on a schedule of some sort. So
And you also do this thing, and I love that, but I cannot be asked because it takes a lot of time probably, is that you show a little bit of this is when I started. And then you show where you are at that moment. And I love that because you can really see the difference and the change.
yeah.
But you have to film that before, and then you have to edit it in. So it must take a long time for you.
It does, yeah. I've tried a couple different ways. At first I would put in just a picture of where I was when I started, and that process almost became more tedious to edit in the pictures and I felt like the video popping in a clip would be easier. So I started doing that if I remember to film the video at the beginning of stitching, because sometimes I just pick up a project and just start going, and then I realize, oh, I never filmed
Yeah.
my starting point. But I think the reason I do that is because that's what I really enjoyed in watching other floss tubes, was seeing like their starting point for the since the last time we saw it, and then where they got to, just the progression of the piece and what they worked on. So I kind of wanted to try to include that into my videos as well,
Yeah.
but it is
Well,
time
I love
consuming.
that. I think it's a great addition. And I commend you on taking the time to do that and
Yeah.
remembering to do it. So did you at any point, because you said you were quite young when you started stitching, but we also see on Flosstube there's more and more male Flosstubers. But did you ever think, I don't want to do this because boys don't do this, or was it never an issue?
Yeah, I think so. Because I didn't know any men who cross-stitched or even were interested in a hobby like that. It was my mom and my aunt, and my other aunt was a quilter, so she was sort of crafty as well. But none of the men in my family were interested in that type of thing. And I think honestly, that's probably some of the reason it got put aside. As I got older, I felt like it wasn't something that I should be doing or that I should be interested in. Um, and so it just kind of got stifled a little bit and and I think that's also been an encouraging thing about Flosstube when I came back to it was that I was able to see other male stitchers. I was watching Chris Cross Stitch at the time. He hasn't filmed in a little while, but he was filming pretty regularly for a bit. And seeing him do it, I was like, oh wow, like there are other guys out there who want to stitch as well. Um, and that was sort of awesome to see and feel a little bit more accepted into the community. Um, but I definitely think that was a reason I kind of stifled it for a while.
Yeah, and now I think there's more and more male Flosstubers coming up and filming and
Yeah.
enjoying it and being part of the whole thing. It always
Yeah.
makes me think of Tom Daly. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
He's an English diver who
Diver.
knits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I know. I,
I
I
think it's
always
great.
loved watching him dive, but then when he started getting into knitting and just was so proud of it, it was like, yeah, it was really cool to see that he was just so open about this craft
Yeah,
that he really enjoyed.
exactly.
And he's
Yeah.
a very good knitter from what I see. Like he
Yeah,
knits a
exactly.
lot of different,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So did you ever consider other crafts? Because from what I hear, your family is quite crafty. So you grew up with crafts around you.
Yeah. I I did, yeah. Like I said, I did diamond art when I first sort of started looking for a craft. I did latch hook for a while. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
No?
It's kind of a piece where you get a canvas and you take a short piece of yarn and you kind of wrap it around a section of the canvas and it kind of makes a rug where the yarn
Right.
sort of sticks up a little bit. There's a special like latch hook tool that you use to put the yarn on and stuff. So I did that for a bit, and I think for me, being crafty, I never felt like a crafter because I didn't think of myself as an artist per se, because I'm not good at like drawing a picture or painting something. And I felt like that's what an artist was. But I liked the crafts where you sort of follow a set of instructions or directions and then still create something. And the more I've been getting into it now, the more I think that is being an artist. Like you are
Yeah.
still creating a piece of art, and that makes you an artist, right? Like even though we don't think of the fiber arts necessarily as an art like that. So I never really got into the crafty things like painting or anything like that. But yeah, dabbled in a few things.
But I think that when you're choosing colors or choosing your fabric or deviating from the pattern sometimes, that is making it your own. And I think that's very artsy,
Yeah,
personally.
I totally
Um,
agree. And it does fulfill that creative side of your brain, right? Where
yeah.
even though you're not, you know, drawing something or painting like you think of in the normal sense, it's like you are still, like you said, picking colors, being
Yeah.
creative and making things your own too, which is
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. And one more question, because you said something about stitching on t-shirts or tops. How did they do that? Because that doesn't have stitchy fabric for cross
Yeah.
stitch. So how does that work?
So back in the day, back in the 90s, they would stitch on what's called waste canvas. And it's a material, I don't think I have any here. It's a material that you can kind of sew onto the sweatshirt. And then once you're done with the stitching, you take out the sewing that you like put it onto the sweatshirt with, and you pull out, basically you pull out each strand of the Aida cloth or the waste canvas. You pull it out from underneath the stitches. I think if you get it wet a little bit, then the glue sort of dissolves in the thing and you can pull out each one. Now it was very tedious, and sometimes like the you couldn't get them pulled out, like you just had to cut it as close as you could to the image. But
Yeah.
that's what my aunt and my mom used to use all the time. Um, so yeah, and now they have a what's called a water soluble canvas. I think I've only seen it in a 14 count. I don't think I've seen it any higher than that, but it's the same idea where you can kind of sew that onto the sweatshirt, and then it has the holes where you would stitch just like cross stitch. But then if you dunk the sweatshirt or the shirt in water, the canvas just dissolves. It just goes away. So you have to use color fast materials like DMC, but
Yeah.
um, but it's much easier to get rid of than trying to pull out each strand of the
Yeah.
canvas under the stitches. This one just kind of dissolves, so that makes it a little bit
Yeah.
easier.
I might want to try that because I often think I want to do something with my stitching, but I
Yeah,
don't want to have everything framed and hung on the walls. I want to
right.
use it in some way, but it's always difficult to find a use for something.
Yeah, totally. Not to jump the gun, but one of the projects that I did bring with me today is a sweatshirt that I made. So,
Oh, I love that. Oh, let's dive into that. Let's go
okay.
into your pieces.
Yeah. So we'll start with that one then. Let me grab that
Yeah.
one. So, like I said, sweatshirts were something that my aunt and my mom always did. And so when I kind of got back into stitching, that was sort of all I knew. So
Yeah.
I stitched one for myself first using that waste canvas that I was talking about and had a horrendous time taking it out. Like it was just most of the canvas is still in there under the stitches, but it works. It was a little owl on a branch that I stitched on a sweatshirt. And then once I did that, I thought I'm going to try this water soluble canvas. And I was planning to run some races in Disney World at the time. And my mom was going to come with me for the week to stay in Disney. So I knew we were both going there. So I decided, what if I would stitch my mom and I sweatshirts like she did for my brother and I when we used to go to Disney and kind
Oh,
of like
that's lovely.
reverse it and stitch one for her. So I have
Yeah.
mine here. I obviously don't have hers, but this is what I stitched. It's the Disney characters. Oops. So it's Mickey, Goofy. Donald, Daisy, Minnie, and Pluto. And the the black doesn't show up as well on this sweatshirt, but I made my mom a matching one that is exactly like this, but hers was on sort of a rose mauve colored sweatshirt.
I
And
love that.
yeah, so I stitched two of these. But
That's
it's nice.
amazing.
It's a little worn through now because obviously as I wear it, then I wash it and it gets the stitches don't look as neat or as nice as they did at one point, but it still is really really just nice. And every time I
I
wear it,
think
I think
that's
of our trip
lovely.
to Disney and yeah,
It's
it
a
was
lovely pattern, I think. It's very cute. It's very, right for the occasion that you were making it for. And it's
exactly.
just lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, we got to so we wore these obviously while we were at Disney, and a
Yes.
couple of times we would meet the characters. We would meet Mickey and Minnie, and we were both wearing our sweatshirts, and they would just like go crazy over the sweatshirts, and then my
Yeah.
mom would say, "He made them," and they would be like, and they would get so excited and give me a hug, and so that was
Yeah.
kind of fun to have that experience. But yeah, so this is definitely one that means a lot to me just because of the story behind it.
Yeah.
With my mom stitching sweatshirts for me when I was younger, and then being able to do the same thing for her now, and sharing
Yeah.
that trip in Disney where I was running and she was there to kind of support me, and so it means a lot to me. But it was
She must have
definitely
been so proud to wear that.
yeah, yeah, we both were.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. And you have to keep this sweatshirt, even though you've washed it a few times and but even so, you have to keep it.
Yep, I will for sure. I will not be getting rid of this one at any point, but it was a lot of fun. It's definitely different stitching on this type of material because it's a lot thicker. So I find that you need a lot of times with cross stitch we use like a blunt tip needle,
Mhm.
but sometimes to get through the sweatshirt you need a sharper tip.
Right.
That kind of helps to pierce the fabric a little bit more, or the sweatshirt. And when you're pulling it through, it's a little tougher to like get your needle through than the hole that's already in the linen or the Aida. But it's definitely doable. It's not that it's too hard, you know.
And do you stitch in hand or do you have a hoop or something to keep it taut?
Yeah, for this one I used a Q snap. And
Right.
I basically had one that was it a 6 by 6, I think? And each square would fit in that square. So I would do one at a time, and then I would sort of move the Q snap as I went.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the hardest part, which I don't know if you can see too well here, but the hardest part was getting everything level. So
Yeah.
mine is tilted just a little bit in the one direction. My mom's was more even, but mine was tilted a little bit. And I think it's just because the materials it moves so much as you're stitching, and even the soluble canvas that you sew onto the material, that can move or shift a little bit. And so you just have to kind of be careful and
Yeah.
yeah. But not every pattern has direct lines like these boxes, where you can really see the horizontal line. Some patterns just have a face and you can't really tell the difference, but
And it's handmade, so what does it matter really if it's
exactly.
straight? I think it's lovely as it is.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, so that's
Well
definitely
done.
that is yeah, one of my
Yeah,
proudest ones.
lovely. And also, I really like the pattern for someone who really likes Disney figures. This is absolutely lovely.
Yeah, this reminded me of the Disney figures that I knew growing up.
Yeah,
Sometimes now in modern patterns of Disney characters, they don't look the same. This sort of
yeah,
has the same nostalgic Disney
yeah,
character I remember,
yeah,
which is kind of why I picked this pattern. It was actually a kit that I got on eBay. It was from a company called Disney Unlimited, I think it was, and they have a number of different cross stitch patterns that they had made back in the 90s,
yeah.
and so they all sort of have this style to them, which are really cool. Yeah, and I found this one and thought it'd be cool to have on a sweatshirt. And at first I thought, maybe I'll just do two of the boxes and put that on the sweatshirt. And then I thought, no, I should do all six because
All six.
I
Yeah.
always like the big patterns and then I thought, well, I should do one for my mom and me so we have matching
Yeah.
sweatshirts. So then it became 12 boxes and
That must have taken a long time. And from what I see, there is backstitching on it as well. Or am I
there
seeing that
is.
wrong?
There's a lot of
Yeah.
backstitch. You can see it mostly here
Yeah.
in Pluto in his face, where that all is backstitched, and even their eyes. I think Goofy has French knots in his face
Oh,
right
yes, he
here for
does.
his
Yeah.
freckles. If you can see those, but so yeah,
Yeah.
lots of different things, and actually this pattern was kind of hard to stitch on the canvas because there are a lot of like quarter or three-quarter stitches in the pattern to
Oh,
get the shape
yeah.
of their faces and stuff. So I was having to kind of pierce the water-soluble canvas in like the middle. It just was, it was pretty tough, but I'm very happy with it. So
It was worth it.
yes, for sure. So that was, yeah, one of the earlier ones that I did. And then the next one I have to share is the only framed piece I have
The
to share
only framed
today.
piece you have.
Yeah. This one was one of the first kits that I bought when I got back into stitching. So it was a kit that I found online. It probably, I wouldn't buy the kit again today if I had the option. I think it was an 11 count canvas and it was full coverage. I didn't know what full coverage was or what I was doing, but my boyfriend really likes Sailor Moon. And so I
Right.
this one for him. Sorry about the glare, but it's a full coverage piece, 11 count Ada, and it was a stamped kit, so the pattern was on the canvas.
Ah,
So that made it a little bit easier to
yeah.
follow with
And did you say 11 count? So that's quite big.
yes, it's quite big. So I'll try to bring the stitches up closer so you
Oh,
can
yeah.
see. But yeah,
Yeah.
the stitches are very, very big. And I look at this now and I think these stitches are not very neat. Like I've come so far in my journey and this was one of the first pieces I did. But he really likes it. And it's again, it's one of those patterns that it's true to like the Sailor Moon that he remembers growing up. Um yeah, and I stitched this for him as a surprise. So I would do it during the day when he was at work, and I did it for months. Like I think I was
Oh,
doing it for 9 months, and I was almost monogamous at this point. I was basically just stitching on this, and
that is an enormous piece. Even though it is 11 count, it's still very, very big.
it is, yeah. And so for his birthday that year, I gave it to him, not in a frame because I knew that he would want to pick out the frame to go with it, but. Yeah, and he opened it and his jaw just dropped because he knew I was into stitching, but he was like, "Did you make this?" And he's like,
Oh, wow.
"When
Oh,
did
that's
you work
lovely.
on this?"
Yeah.
So it was fun to be able to surprise him and also just fun to try my hand at for full coverage.
Yeah.
I had never done anything like this before, and I think the stamp pattern honestly helped kind of get
Mm.
me into the idea of full coverage.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was tough. And on 11
Yeah.
count, I think most of this was three strands of floss.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't even doing the loop start because I didn't have two strands. So it's kind of bulky on the back. The back is not great, but yeah.
But you can't see the back, and I think it's a lovely gift. First of all, so many hours you've put in it, so
Yeah.
that's just lovely.
Yeah. So that one means a lot to me too. And this hangs in our living room area. Sorry about all the glare there.
Yeah. That's
But
okay.
yeah.
I think that's lovely. He must have been chuffed.
He was very, very excited for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and he just kept saying, "When did you stitch this?" And I was like, "Well, I've been working on it for the past 9 months without you knowing."
That's
Uh,
still quite quick, 9 months for a full coverage. I think
it
that's
was.
still good going.
Yeah. And like I said, I that was pretty much the only thing I would work on. When I would stitch in the evenings or when he was home, then I would stitch on something else. I'd have another project going, but that was
Yeah.
pretty much the only thing I worked on.
Yeah.
Because I knew I wanted to try to get it done for his
Yeah.
birthday if I could. So,
I think if you have a reason to finish it at some point, that can be a great motivation to keep going.
It totally can. It seems
Okay.
like it works one of two ways, right? It's either a great motivation to finish it, or you don't want to because you know that deadline is looming. I think with the sweatshirts I made for my mom and I knew I had to finish both of them by the time we went to Disney. And my mom's I got done way in advance, and then it was time for mine, and I just kept putting it off. I was like, I don't want to stitch on this right now. And it got down to I was stitching it days before we went to Disney to finish it.
And then you made a decision to do all six, and then you
Right,
didn't like yourself for that.
right, exactly. I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I think that's when I realized
Lovely.
I don't like deadline stitching as much as I thought I would. I thought
Right.
I would really enjoy, having a deadline in mind of when I want to finish this by. And I think I realized then I just need to be able to stitch it when I want to stitch it and how I want to stitch it. And then when it
Yeah.
eventually gets finished, I can give it to someone, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be for a specific date or birthday or anything. So
And sometimes I am really out of it. So I might love it when I start, and then at some point I don't want to see it.
yeah,
And then I take a break, and I know at some point it will come back to me.
exactly, exactly. And usually when you come back to it at some point, it feels almost new again. It's like
Yeah,
refreshed and you're like, oh, I basically have a new project to work on again.
yeah,
Whereas, yeah, you can get tired of it
absolutely.
if that's the only thing.
Yeah, yeah, and some just take forever. Like the one you just shown, that one takes a
Yeah,
long time, lots of stitching.
yeah. So the next one I have is one that I share on my channel all the time, and it's not completed yet, but it's one that means a lot to me, and that is Saga from Long Dog Samplers.
Yeah,
Show you where I'm at right now.
yes.
This one has five arches, so I'm on the third row of arches, and there's two more underneath that. I think I'm about 35% of the way through the project, and it's just a beautiful piece. The more I work on it, the more you see, and it's fairly easy since it's monochromatic. I'm stitching it with silk on a 36 count vintage country mocha. And you know, I was always drawn to this piece when I saw all the different long dog samplers because it was the biggest one.
Yeah,
And I always like to go big, I guess. But it's taken on a different meaning for me now that I have my Flosstube channel. And that's because everybody has been so invested and supportive and just kind about seeing the progress on this one that it's one I show every week and everybody still loves it. And I think that support has just meant so much to me in that I have this community of people around me who are all cheering me on to get this done and we're all sort of enjoying it together. And so it's kind of taken on a new meaning for me as I've been stitching it. It will forever remind me of my floss tube journey as well. And that I think
yeah.
is very special.
And we are just happy that you are doing it and we can enjoy it with you and we don't
Right,
have to do it.
right, exactly. Exactly.
It's enormous, but it's so pretty.
Yeah, I really do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I'm hoping to finish it by 2028. That's my goal, which would be 4 years. I started it on Leap Day of 2024, and the goal was to finish it by the next Leap Day. And that means it's about 550 stitches per week. So I usually work on it 1 day a week, and it's a good amount of time because I don't get tired of it because I work on it for that amount of stitches and then I put it away. And then a whole week goes by and it comes back out again. And I was like, oh yeah, this is fun. This will be
Yeah.
good to work on again. So it's a manageable amount for me. And um, yeah, I've just really, really been enjoying it. And
It's still a lot though for a piece that you have to then stitch on for so many years. So
yeah,
that's massive.
yeah, it is. I think it's just over 100,000 stitches in the piece. So it's a large
Yeah.
one, but it does go fairly quickly since it's monochromatic. You don't have to worry about changing colors. You just kind of pick your floss and go. And that kind of makes it nice. And honestly, each little arch kind of feels like a finish in a way because each one
Yeah.
has a different scene in the middle. So once you finish that, you kind of feel a sense of completion, even though you know you're not done with the project. But you get
It
that
does
sense,
feel good. Yeah.
yeah, you get that sense of having a motif or a section completed, and that
Yeah.
that really helps. But But yeah,
And do tell me you're going to frame this one when it's
yes,
finished.
for sure. This one will
Yeah,
be framed and on my wall. This will be a
yeah,
piece that I will keep around for forever and hopefully,
yeah,
pass on in future
yeah,
generations or someone else will take it that really enjoys it.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's stunning.
the next one I have, let me grab real quick. This one is my first Mirabilia that I completed. Well, the only one that I have completed so far, but this is Lily of the Woods. This was stitched on a 32 count evergreen Lugana by Fiberlicious Yummy Fibers. And when I came back to Flosstube, I really just fell in love with the fancy ladies. I
Yeah.
never knew that there were designs like this out there, and I loved how sort of fantastical they were and just the colors, and I just thought they were beautiful. So I decided to sort of try one on my own. And this was the pattern I chose for it, and really glad that I chose this one because it has a little bit of everything when it comes to a Mirabilia. It has the block stitching in her dress, and then it has like back stitching in her wings, her bottom
Yeah.
wings. It's got Krynic in her top wings. These are mostly Krynic the whole way through. Of course, it has all the beads that are in here in her hair. It's got charms down here at the bottom with these pieces
Oh,
that are dangling off the bottom of her dress. Um, so yeah, it just has like a little bit of everything. It's got confetti, and these flowers were pretty heavy color change. But I got a little taste of it all and just really, really enjoyed her. So this is another piece that I
stunning.
keep saying I need to get this framed and on the wall
Yeah,
because
you do.
she's
You
just,
do. It's so pretty. And I think the fabric is so perfect for it.
thank you. I was
Yeah,
very
it's
happy. This was
beautiful.
sort of a last minute fabric change because the one I had ordered was going to take weeks and weeks to
Mm,
arrive. And
yeah.
I was actually going to Florida to visit my parents over the Christmas holidays and knew I wanted to start this. And so when I realized the fabric I ordered wasn't going to arrive in time, I found this on a D-stash group on Facebook. I was like, well, I'm
Oh,
just going to order it and hope it arrives. And I asked her if she could like ship it quickly. And she said, yeah, I'll get it to you. And then it arrived.
oh,
I thought, this one is just perfect. Like, I think this will be the
perfect.
right color for her and the right like
It's
amount of
perfect.
modeling and the right, you know, so I was very lucky that it came, I think, the day before I went to Florida, and I packed it in my suitcase with all the threads and started it
It's
there.
lovely. I sometimes wonder if I should try a Mirabilia. But it's one of the Christmas ones that I love. I think Stitching
Uh-huh.
Mummy did that one. But this one is also one that just convinces me. I think I should do one of these. It's so
They
pretty.
they really are beautiful. I tend to be drawn to her older style of patterns,
Yeah,
but even some of the newer ones are just gorgeous. And the pictures, I mean, like we always say, the pictures just don't do it justice
no,
until you
no, they
see.
don't.
And even in the camera, you can see how beautiful it is, but looking at it in person too, it's just a
Yeah,
whole different experience.
yeah,
I think when I first started this, a lot of people would comment on my channel and say, "Oh, I could never stitch a Mirabilia. I couldn't do that." And I just kept saying, "It's just one X at a time or one bead at a time. It's
yeah,
nothing that crazy. Like you can do it if you want to. Um,
yeah. It
with
does
this
take a
one,
lot of patience and a lot of skill, but it is
yes,
beautiful.
for sure. I
Yeah.
also on this one I did her skin 1/1, which is the tiny stitching. So I'll see if I can show
Oh yeah,
this.
I can see it. I can see
Yeah.
it.
So it's the smaller stitches,
Oh,
which took
stunning.
a lot of time, but I'm really happy with how that turned out. Now, I don't think you need to do that to make a beautiful Mirabilia because I think even if you do the normal skin stitching, it still looks amazing.
Yeah.
But for me, when I would see the completed pieces on someone's channel, I just really liked the skin, how it sort of stood out from the rest of the stitches in a way that really worked. So.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Very proud
Really
of that one
beautiful.
too. Yeah, and the last piece I sort of wanted to talk about was a piece I don't have anymore in my possession because it was a gift for my previous roommate um, here in New York, and he was around when I first got Winston, which who is my dog that I share on my
Yeah.
channel all the time. Uh, and he was such a huge help with Winston when he was a puppy, and even he just sort of fell in love with Winston. I think at first when I got him, he he thought maybe I'll help out, but I'm not going to fall in love with this dog, and then he sort of did. So even since I've moved away, he always volunteers to come watch Winston if I'm going away on a trip or something. And so I really wanted to do something special for him. And I found a pattern on Etsy. The site is called I'll send it to you in an email, but it's called Puntago Petite Patterns, I think, on Etsy. And they had this cross stitch pattern of a Chihuahua that looked exactly like Winston. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, this is the pattern I need to stitch for my old roommate because
Yeah,
I don't have to request a custom pattern or anything. It already looks in the exact same colors as Winston. So I I stitched it on I think it was a 20 count. The cloth was called Kali, Kali. I had never heard of it before, but it was sort of a softer material. And I stitched it on that with two strands of thread. And then I sewed it
two
into a pillow,
strands on 20 count,
two strands on 20 count, which
right?
was probably not my wisest decision, but I really wanted him to look full. I didn't want to see any of the background in the stitches of him, especially because he's a black Chihuahua, and so I wanted the black to be really full stitching. And it was a softer material, so it wasn't as difficult as maybe a 20 count Ada would be. And so yeah, I'll send you a picture so you can pop it up here. But I made a pillow with Winston on it and gave it to my roommate, and he just loved it. But the whole process was special for me. One, because I was stitching my dog, and that felt
Yeah,
special. But also it was a gift for him, which made it very special. And then I had never made a pillow before, or even used a sewing machine before, and my boyfriend's dad in California, he sews using a sewing machine a lot. He like will hem pants and he'll make blankets and he does a lot with the sewing machine. And so we asked him if he would teach me how to use the sewing machine and make a pillow. And so when we had gone there on vacation, we spent a whole day, him and I, at the sewing machine, and he taught me how to do it. And that is a memory I will forever have of learning how to use my first time on a sewing machine.
that's
And
lovely.
we stitched I'll show you this real quick just because we stitched a test pillow to kind of see how it would go. And so I made this cute little pattern.
Oh,
Well, I
that's
didn't
cute.
make it. This was a freebie pattern, but it's from Mario. And uh, so I stitched this up, and we used the same kind of backing fabric and tested it with this. And then once we felt like we had the process down, then we went on to the real pillow with
Yeah.
Winston on it. So yeah,
And
that's another one. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
wouldn't you want to have a stitch of of your dog for yourself as well?
Honestly, it was very hard to give up that pillow because I really liked it in the end. I still have the backing fabric that I use, the sort of black velvet, so I have enough to make another one. And of course, I still have the pattern since it was a PDF on Etsy. So I think someday I will make it again for myself.
Yeah, you should.
Because it just turned out so nice and it looked
Yeah.
so much like Winston. You'll see in the picture that I send you, but yeah, it was hard to give up.
And I think something of your dog, I always grew up with dogs. So dogs are important. And it's
They
lovely
are.
to stitch them and to sort of put them in your memory. I
Yep.
think that's important. Yeah.
Yep. I definitely agree. I think it's a piece most pieces I probably would not stitch twice, although I guess I did it with the sweatshirt
Yeah.
for my
Yeah,
mom.
you did.
But most pieces I wouldn't say like I'll stitch that again. That is a piece that I probably will stitch again at some point in the future. So, do
And
you
we
have
have
any
plenty
pieces
to
that you've ever
stitch.
stitched twice?
Um, no, I don't think I have. There's currently
Yeah.
one that I might stitch in different colors. It's one by JBW Designs. It's not that
Okay.
big.
Yeah.
And I really like the one I'm doing now, but it's with hot pink. And I think
Okay.
this pattern would be even nicer with a green or a lovely blue. So I
Yeah.
might make that one again. And you can make them into lovely pillows and give them away if you want.
Perfect.
Um, but I always have this idea that I'm going to make all these similar Christmas little ones and then give them away around Christmas.
Uh-huh.
And I start with one and then that's it.
Yeah.
So it never really happens.
To do the
But yeah,
second one is kind of tedious to stitch it
yeah,
again.
that's it. Never,
I
never
know.
again. But yeah, I always have the idea and it's the thought that counts. So I'm going to stick with that.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you very much for sharing your pieces. They're very different and it's so lovely to see your journey as a stitcher. And
Yeah.
yeah, from your sweatshirt all the way to but the one that I've seen now is your big long dog sampler. So yeah, that's quite a journey. Do you
Yeah,
have
it
anything you would
definitely
like to achieve in the future?
like lots of things. I have so many things I want to do. I guess one of the big ones is well, two sort of big ones. One is that I would like to stitch a chatelaine at some point. Um, they are very intricate designs with a lot of specialty stitches and beading and krynic and silks, but they are such beautiful pieces when they are stitched. And so I would like to do one of those at some point. I think I'm still kind of working my way up to that little by little. Um, and I would like to stitch a reproduction sampler as well. I have never done one of those either. I think, as you've seen, my style is just kind of I enjoy all of the things with
Yeah.
stitching, and I don't really have one specific style or one specific designer that I like to stitch. So I think I just kind of like to try as much of it as I can. I think that's what has been so much fun about this hobby is you think, you're just making an X on a piece of fabric, but there's so many different options and styles of
Yeah.
patterns and materials to work with that
Yeah.
it almost seems never ending, the possibilities.
True. And that's the best part about Flosstube as well, because you can sort of live through others and see what they do and then sort of make a decision what you want to try in the future.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I usually have a question from a previous guest, but I think I forgot to ask Sarah from Sarah Stitchy Spot.
Uh-huh.
But I have two questions from the previous guest, so I'm just going to ask
Sure.
both of them. And the first one is from Sarah from Sew Me Sarah, and she asked, "Which designer do you want to spend the day with?"
I did hear her bring up that question in her interview. And I've been thinking about it, and I think I would have to say Jacob from Modern Folk Embroidery. I really love stitching his pieces. I'm stitching with the Fruits of Plenty right now. I did the holiday countdown that he did with Evertote last year, and something about the way that he creates his pieces, the flow of stitching is just so pleasant to me. It's so um, therapeutic almost, and I really just enjoy that about his patterns. But he also just seems like such a cool guy. His Flosstube videos, sometimes he'll write songs or he'll play music or his editing skills are so good, and
Yeah.
so I think he would be a lot of fun to spend the day with and just sort of get to know as a person, but also kind of pick his brain a little bit about the designing process and how he works to create these patterns that I love
Yeah.
stitching so much. So I think
And if
he'd
you're
be.
making Fruits of Plenty, isn't that almost as big as the long dog? Or is it
It is.
as big?
It's. I think that one's about half the amount of stitches. So I think that one is 50,000
Really?
stitches.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
but I'm stitching mine on a 32 count, so it looks bigger.
Right.
Uh,
I think
but
it's
yeah,
beautiful when it's big.
yeah, I do too. It's another piece that I will definitely have framed and on my wall at some
Yes.
point. But yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think it's quite as many stitches as
Okay.
Saga is. So
It's only 50,000.
yeah, exactly. Still a very large piece, but
Massive. Yeah, but it's very pretty. And what is your favorite brick and mortar shop?
that's kind of an easy and a hard one for me because I've only ever been to one. Um,
Ah,
we here in New York City, in the city, we don't have a cross stitch shop that's local here to the city. There used to be one in Long Island, which was about 45 minutes from the city, but that one closed right before I started stitching. I think it may have closed around COVID time in 2020. There's a new cross stitch shop that opened up in New Jersey that I haven't had a chance to go check out yet, but it's just across the river from the city. And it's called Born to Stitch, I believe. So that one is on my list to check
Yeah.
out. But
Yeah.
other than that, we don't have any here in the city. You know, we have a lot of yarn shops, um, but not really cross stitch shops. So the only one I have been to is actually where my parents moved in Florida. There's a shop called the Inspired Needle, and it is maybe a 10-minute drive from my parents' house, which
That's
I
lovely.
just feel so lucky to have that.
Yeah.
Um, so that is definitely my favorite,
Yeah.
but not just because it's the only one I've been to, but the amount of models that they have on the walls there. It's a pretty small shop, but every piece of the wall is just covered in a model,
Yeah.
and it's almost like walking into an art gallery, honestly, because you walk in there. I could spend hours just looking at the finished pieces, like not even shopping, just just
Yeah.
looking.
Just looking. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's just
almost a
fabulous.
museum.
Yeah, and
Mm.
it's so inspiring going in there. So I really enjoy that one. But obviously, there's a lot on my list that I'd like to go to. Color and
Yeah.
Cotton in St. Louis, I'd love to go to. The
Yeah.
Attic, Needlework, Acorns and Threads. There's so many that I'd love to get to, but just haven't yet. So
If there's no shop in New York, I mean that is a gap, isn't it? So if you
it
have any
seems
entrepreneurial blood, you could try one in New York.
I know. I have thought about that because I always think I cannot be the only cross stitcher in all of New York City. There has to be
Exactly.
other people. Ironically, I have not met anyone, even through Flosstube. Like I haven't met anyone who lives in the city. A few in New Jersey, but no one else that lives in New York City that cross
That is
stitches.
interesting. That
So
is interesting. You should put a thing out, a poll via Instagram or something, and see
I
if anyone
should.
pops up.
I should because it would be great to have someone local that I could stitch
Yeah,
with. But yeah, it just is surprising to me. And I wonder if that's why there are no shops because there just isn't as much of a market for it here in the city.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think I might be the rare one who stitches in in the city.
Luckily, we can always order online.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a tip for the viewers? And that could be a tip for people who've stitched forever and for new people. Do you have a tip?
Yeah. I think I think the biggest tip that I could give is to not be intimidated by any cross stitch pattern and to just try things. You know,
Yeah,
even if it doesn't work out or you find out you don't like doing it, just try it because there's we're all capable of doing these things, of making these patterns, of doing, whether it's 1/1 stitching, that's a smaller stitch, or whether it's beading, or whether it's working with Krynic, I think, or even specialty stitches. I haven't done many specialty stitches yet, but a few, and I was intimidated at first, but once you follow the instructions and you get the hang of it, you learn it. I think there's something good and exciting about learning new skills with the hobby that you love. And we have so many things to learn. So
yeah,
I would say just try it, even if that means trying linen for the first time. Just try it. If you don't like it, you can always go back to Ada and Ada is
yeah,
great as well. I stitch on a variety of fabrics, but just try it and see what
yeah,
you like. Just test it out. And I think that kind of opens up your possibilities of what you can stitch
yeah.
or what you want to stitch and yeah.
And the
So
first
I
one
think
doesn't have to be perfect either. I really agree with just try it and then see how it goes and accept the fact that it's going to be it's going to be not great the first time, but you'll get
yeah,
better.
exactly. And I think that's what you can see in the progression of our finished pieces,
Yeah,
from the pieces
yeah,
that I did early on till where I'm at now, my stitching has improved a lot. And
yeah,
it's just because I tried different techniques and sort of worked
yeah,
at them till I got them. Even, stitching in hand versus stitching in a Q snap. When I first
Yeah.
started, I thought there is no way I could stitch in hand. I don't know how to hold the fabric. It feels so awkward. It's like flimsy.
Yeah.
And now I stitch in hand on my long dog. That's the only way I stitch it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it. And I think I've improved as I've done it more and more. Um, so yeah, just try it, and
Yeah.
it's all about the journey. It's not going to be perfect the first time, but you will get there over time.
Yeah.
And don't force yourself to do something you're not enjoying, but
Yeah.
I think it always helps to try to learn a new part of the hobby since there's so much out there.
Yeah, and there are some patterns like the Mirabilia you just showed that does intimidate me with so
Mm.
much of the beading and the gold and everything. So, and you also, I think, have to accept that a pattern like that is going to take a long time to make.
You do. Yep. I think you set your expectation, right? You know
Yeah,
that this will be a piece that will be with you for a long time and you're going to spend a while on it. And you know that there will be some difficult parts of the piece that you stitch, but but it
yeah,
will come together, and I think once you try it, you'll see what parts you do or don't like in stitching it.
yeah,
Um, Especially with the Mirabilia because there is a big chunk of the dresses usually that are block stitching, and that's fairly simple stitches for everybody to do. And then she just has a way of expanding on that and making it so beautiful with the beading and the Krynic and everything. But I say try it.
yeah. I
I say
agree.
go
That's
for
going
it.
to be your title. Just try
Yeah.
everything. I have some quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is just for you because I don't think I have to ask every stitcher this. Running or stitching?
Oh my goodness, that is a hard one.
I know.
I guess I would have to say stitching because I probably enjoy that as a whole more than running. But what I like about the two hobbies is the balance. So I can get up in the morning and I get outside and I exercise and I sort of like have my workout. And then usually after, especially after a longer run, if I do, 10 miles or more, I come back and I'm tired. So I just want to sit and relax. And then when
Yeah.
I'm sitting and relaxing, I can stitch. And so it kind of
Yeah, so
works out in
it
both ways.
complements.
Yeah, it does. And with our hobby, because we're sitting most of the time when we're stitching, if I were just to stitch all day long, I would barely move out of my chair. But I think
Yeah,
it's important to get up
yeah,
and take walks or go for bike rides or runs or whatever, just to get some fresh air, to get some movement. And we can't just stitch 24 hours a day, even though we all want to.
we'd want to, but we
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
And you do challenges as well related to your running. So I think that also sort of is a way to put them together.
It is, yeah. That honestly, that has just blown my mind of the amount of people who have been interested in sort of joining the challenges. I did it last year for my first marathon after creating a Flosstube and had everybody stitch while I was running the marathon, and that
Yeah,
was just so motivational for me to get through to
yeah,
see everybody kind of stitching in support of me. And so now I'm doing the whip into shape challenge where I've challenged people to stitch along with my marathon training for a race I have at the end of August. And it's been so fun to see everybody's excitement for the challenge of getting out a piece that they might not have gotten any progress on and focusing on it over the next few months with small stitches here and there that add up in the end to a lot of progress that they'll see. And honestly, I never thought these two hobbies would go together. I'm like, no stitcher is going to be interested in my running journey, and no runner is going to be interested in my stitching. So it's been really, really fun to kind of see the crossover and it's just another example of how great this community actually is of, a way that nobody has to be supporting me in this way, but for so many people to kind of step up and say like, yes, I will stitch in support of your training. That just means the world to me. It's really awesome. And so yeah, I've really been enjoying kind of hosting that and having people join along for the crazy ride.
I think for us it feels very much like, oh, one of us is running a marathon because
Yep.
I can't run to save my life, to be honest. So it's good to have, we have one of us is doing it.
Yep. I've heard so many people say, like, I'm just so glad that you're the one doing the running and I just have to do the stitching.
Exactly. I think it was Sarah from So Me Sarah. She was sort of in our last Flosstube. She was like, "Well, I'm not running anywhere," but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
exactly. Neither am
That
I.
made me
But we'll
laugh.
do the stitching.
Yep.
That's a good. You do that, and we do this.
Yeah.
What is your favorite fabric to use?
I think I do prefer linen. I think that would be my go-to if I needed to. But I kind of stitch on everything, and I think each fabric kind of has its use case, right? So I think I really enjoy stitching on Aida when it comes to maybe like a smaller, more full coverage piece
Mhm.
where the stitches look really plump and they kind of stand out more
Yeah,
on the Aida. But I prefer linen for, things like my long dog or fruits of plenty that are a little bit more primitive or sampler-esque. So I think each style kind of has its own place, but
yeah.
I think I gravitate more towards linen. That would be my go-to.
And which count would you take?
I've been enjoying 36 count lately, with one strand of floss. It does look
Right.
more. It's not as full of stitching, but I
Mm.
really enjoy that. I've done a few on 40 count, and I have enjoyed that as well. Although I've found I need the lighting to be just right to be able to
Right.
stitch on
Yeah.
40 count. I can't do
Yeah.
that at night when it's dark outside and that kind of thing. So it makes it a little more difficult. But
Yeah.
yeah, 36 count is a nice
Yeah.
one for me.
Yeah. And what is
What
your
about you?
favorite color to stitch with? Sorry?
What about you? Do you have a favorite linen or a
Well, I'm
fa
an
or a
Ada
favorite?
stitcher. I just stitch on
Yeah,
Ada. And
yeah,
I currently gravitate to 20 count, one strand
that's
of
right.
floss.
I remember you
Everything I
saying
start on 20 count now. Yeah. I've
20
looked
count is
for
nice.
smaller, 22, 24, but it doesn't really exist for proper Ada. Then it becomes hardanger, and I don't really like that fabric. So I'd
Yeah,
love to go a little bit smaller, but I can't.
yeah, yeah. No, 20 count Ada is a good fabric. I don't think I've ever stitched on that with just one strand, so I should try that.
Yeah, that's why I was interested about you saying two strands, and I thought, oh, I would find that really annoying to do two
Yeah.
strands. But yeah,
When you use 18 count, do you use two strands for that or just one? Or you don't really stitch on 18 count Ada?
two.
Two,
Yeah,
yeah.
I do have 18 count eight, and I have one where I use one strand of floss, but usually I use two strands. But then
Yeah.
it comes up a little bit, so it's quite thick stitching.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
What is your favorite color to stitch with?
I think anything bright, honestly, bright colors. I like blues, which I guess there haven't been too many in the pieces I've shared, but I guess Saga is a bright blue. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just like the bright colors. So it could be
yeah,
orange, blue, green, yellow.
right.
That's my favorite. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Are you a morning or an evening stitcher, or an afternoon stitcher?
I would say probably more of a morning stitcher.
Right,
Um, I think my eyes tend to get more tired towards the evening, and so I can't work on anything too complicated in the evenings.
right.
Um, if it's a simpler piece, that then I can pull that out or work on
Yeah.
it. But yeah, I would say more morning stitcher.
Are you? I think we've had your favorite designer. What was your worst mistake or regret?
Hmm. Probably probably using that waist canvas on the first owl sweatshirt that I made. That was just I was so frustrated by the end of that because I really liked how it came out and I just could not get that canvas out from under the the stitching. Um, my roommate was so kind. She took it because I was to the point where I'm just gonna get rid of this. Like I can't deal with this anymore. I was so frustrated. And she was so kind and she said, "No, let me just take it for a little bit." And so
Oh,
she like sat down with it one evening and cut the the canvas as close to the stitching as she could so that it didn't stand out. So most of the canvas is still in there under the stitching, but that was probably my biggest regret. Then I switched to the water soluble canvas and I thought I will never use waste canvas again. That was just too tedious for me. Um,
It's great to hear that your biggest regret is a long time ago, and ever since it seems to be okay.
yeah, I think I really don't think I have any regrets. I mean, because it's all been a learning process, right? Even there's a excuse me, there's a piece I'm stitching on right now. The Put a Bird on It Sal from Jacob at Modern Folk Embroidery. And I'm stitching it on a green linen that with like a bright yellow floss. And the linen is just the worst to work with. It is not fun at all. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it's really awful to work with. So you would think that would be a regret that I put this piece on this linen, but I like the results so much. I like how it looks in the end that it's almost just worth it to stick it out and get the final image of how I want it. But boy, that is not fun to stitch on. So I feel like my regrets maybe are more just learning experiences and
Yeah.
kind of going from there.
Well, that links again to your just try everything. So if that's your
Yeah.
attitude, I think that's lovely.
Yeah.
Would you go for a paper pattern or a digital pattern?
Digital for me. I use Markup RXP. I don't have Pattern Keeper at all, but I use Markup and um, it just makes it easier for me to sort of find, especially in a full coverage piece, to
Yeah.
find where you're going next. And I'm the type of person who really enjoys sort of the numbers part of stitching. So I enjoy knowing how many stitches I have in a piece, how many stitches I've completed each week, what percentage I'm at. And so all of those type of statistics I'm able to get from markup. And that just makes it really fun for me to kind of plan a little bit. And I think that's another part of the hobby I just really enjoy is kind of planning out what I want my stitching to be like for the next week or two. So I like that part of a digital, but
Yeah.
I do stitch on paper patterns too. I have a number that, I don't have the digital for that I have stitched from a paper pattern. So
Sometimes we go old fashioned.
yeah. And if I do
Would you
that, I always
finish?
make if I do
Sorry.
that, I always make a working copy and highlight off where
Oh,
I
really?
yeah, because I like to know what I've completed and what I have left, and it's an easy
Right.
way for me to see that quickly. I
Yeah.
think, trying to find my place without marking it off on a paper pattern would just be too difficult for me. So I really go old school with it. I get out my highlighter and and go for it.
Sort of try to make a picture of it and then see the shapes of it. So I don't have to mark it off really. And I don't give myself the time to do it either. That's
Yeah,
also not really what
yeah.
I do. Would you finish a whip or would you start something new?
I think I would finish a whip. I do enjoy the starting process, but I think the more I learn about myself, the more I think I am a process stitcher where I just enjoy trying everything, like I've said
Yeah.
before. And so starting a new project, although it's exciting, is not I'd rather have a whip that's already begun that I'm working on. So I guess working towards a finish would be my priority. Um, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think you're the first one to say I'd finish something. Most people go for the new start, but it's very sensible to finish it first.
It is enticing, honestly. I think I also don't want to have a huge whip count that I get too overwhelmed by
Um,
and so I'm at a good level now. I think I have about 25 projects going, and that for me is like a good level where I think if I were to increase that too much more, I would just be stressed out that I'm not getting to all the projects and like there's things that
yeah,
are lingering. Um, and the starting process for me is, although it's fun, it is difficult, right? Because you have to find the right place on the fabric and you have to make sure it's oriented the right way and you have to organize your floss together and it's a big undertaking to start it. So I think I'd rather have once it's already started, then I enjoy just picking it up
yeah,
and going from there. But
yeah, yeah. And I think I agree with you. I recently saw someone who had 90 whips, and I thought, could I manage that? And I don't think I can. My mind wouldn't let me do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine either. I love watching people who have that many because it's always fun to see random things come up. But for myself personally, I just think my mind would be overwhelmed by,
Yeah.
what to
Yeah.
choose or not getting to certain things.
Yeah.
Um, what is your whip count at now? Do you mind me asking? Do you know how many you have?
I do know how many I have. I have 30 at the moment,
Okay, yeah.
but
So that's
I think there's about 10 that are from when I was sort of in the early stages of restarting my stitching. I have a similar story to you, you're leaving it and then restarting it. And I think there's about 10 that are in a style that I wouldn't really want to stitch now. So they're in there
yeah,
because I like them, but I don't know if I will ever finish it.
yeah, yeah. So you kind of don't count those, but they're in the
They are
count.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
they are there. So I have 30, which I think, and sometimes I have weeks where I think my brain is just tired, and then I start new things quite regularly because I'm tired, and I look at Etsy, and then I see new things, and then it's sort of a circle. And then there are weeks where I just stitch and stitch.
Yeah, it's hard with this hobby because there's so many patterns out there and so many things we
Yeah,
want to stitch. And
yeah,
especially for me, I tend to be drawn to the bigger projects, as you've seen, and so they take a longer time. And so there are whips that I have now that will be in my whip pile for the next 4 or 5 years,
yeah,
and so that means I don't have as much room in my head to start new things until
yeah,
I get some other things completed. So. Yeah, it's interesting how that works. But there are definitely days where I'm like you, I go on Etsy and I'm like, oh, I want to start this right
yeah.
now, or I want to start this.
And then I started, and I think, why did I start this? But I like it. So, I think as long as you enjoy what you're doing, then it's okay.
Exactly. Yep. There's no rules and everybody is different. I think that's another
Yeah,
fun thing about the hobby is, there's no real rules to everything and how you go about your stitching or planning it or not planning it or
yeah,
starting all the things. It's just whatever you enjoy and it's a hobby at the end of the day and it brings us joy and it brings us a peace and a sense of calm. And if that's what you're getting out of it, then that's great. I say go for it.
me too. Me too. That's all my questions to you. So I thank you very much. I don't know if there's anything you would like to say as a last word.
No, I think just well, first of all, thank you for hosting this. It's been really fun, and I have enjoyed watching the other three as well. I had some big shoes to fill because the Sarahs and Kim are are wonderful stitchers and have been doing it for a lot longer than I have. But yeah, thank you so much for setting up this podcast. And even if it does take a little break, I know you mentioned it might go on a hiatus for a little bit. Maybe it'll come back in the future, and you can bring it back. It's a fun way to sort of enjoy a floss tuber in a different light. They're not going through their normal motions of sharing. And so thank you for setting this up and asking me to come on. And also just thank you to the whole community for sort of welcoming me in with open arms. And it's been a really fun journey for me to have this floss tube. I never thought, a year and a half later I would still be making videos and people would still be wanting to watch and see what I'm up to. But it's just been really great. And I've met a lot of friends along the way and I'm excited for, what's coming in the future and we'll see where it all goes. But yeah, so I think just thank you is how I'd like to end it.
Well, thank you very much. It was lovely to have you on. You're a lovely chatter. You chat away,
I
and I
do,
think that's
sorry.
great. No, that's absolutely lovely, and it's lovely to learn a little bit. But I think that's why I started it as well, to learn a little bit more about why we stitch and why
Yeah,
pieces mean something to us. So yeah, and I think you've given us that very freely and very openly today. So thank you for that.
you're welcome.
And I thank the viewers as well for watching. If you have any questions for Andrew, you can leave them in the comments. I'm sure he will go through them at some point. And if you have any other floss tubers you would like for me to get in touch with so I can ask them all the questions, let me know who you would like to see. And then hopefully I will see you again next time.
Bye.
Let's That's